Caring for my fiancée Anya's deteriorating health and her toxic family took a toll on me at just 17. I should have never been a mother, her mom confessed. Before hurling, she wasn't my problem. Now, as I hold Anya through her pain, I wonder, will this nightmare ever end? My memory is somewhat poor, so please allow for some leeway if certain aspects do not seem coherent. All questions will be addressed. We became engaged relatively early in our relationship, but I, male 17 years old, female 15 years old at the start, have no issues with it. Her family, female 18 years old, female 16 years old at the start, shares my sentiments, and I will refer to my fiancée as Anya. Due to my own family problems and the acceptance I have felt from hers, I believe I have been given a new chance at life. It feels as though I am starting anew with a family that loves me as their own. At the beginning of our relationship, she pretended that her family accepted her as well. As our relationship progressed from dates to discussions of marriage, she tearfully revealed that her mother had abandoned her when she was 6 years old and had given her up to her aunt. Anya's mother struggled with alcoholism and was constantly reminded of her daughter, who had passed away approximately 8 years before Anya's birth. She never truly recovered from this loss and has consistently faced challenges with her children. Her eldest son was a drug addict. The middle son was a troubled child who abused my fiancée during her childhood. The youngest son is currently unaccounted for after being caught engaging in inappropriate acts with their adopted daughter. There are 3 adopted daughters in total. Before I learned of Anya's family situation, she somewhat misled me regarding her mother's family dynamics. She presented a romanticized version of every facet of her mother's, father's, and adopted siblings' lives. Once I discovered that this portrayal was inaccurate, I, unlike others who dismissed her as delusional due to her hallucinations of her mother and siblings, sought to uncover the truth. I had deep discussions with her aunt and cousin. After speaking for several days for hours each time, they finally grasped Anya's and my perspective, realizing that she is not crazy. She simply longs for her family. I found out where her mother worked rather easily. Anya mentioned that her mother was employed at the same hospital that she frequented for her medical condition. I learned that her mother would intentionally avoid working on days when Anya was there in order to avoid seeing her. During a holiday, I visited the hospital and requested to see her. I was told that she was busy, and I informed the receptionist that I was family, which was a lie, but I was accompanied by her sister, so it seemed plausible. When I finally met her mother, it felt surreal. She embodied everything that Anya had described. Although she was in her 40s, she appeared no older than 25, and she was exceptionally gentle and polite. Along with her sister, I was invited to her home for dinner. The reason she wanted to speak with me was to share her perspective on Anya. After we ate, which was somewhat awkward for me at least, Anya's mother told me how Anya would continuously cry as a child and how this had affected her and her husband's marriage. I countered by asserting that Anya did nothing to warrant such treatment. It was as if a switch flipped in her. She became angry and looked at me with disdain. She stated that she wished she had never given birth to that girl and firmly declared that she was not her mother. I thought I could uncover some hope within her, but I truly realized her malevolence when I broached the topic of Anya's teenage years. I was aware that Anya had 2 ex-boyfriends between the ages of 12 and 15. We met when she was 16, and she often shared her fears of women. Anya was repeatedly and brutally sexually assaulted by her ex-boyfriend, who was 2 years her senior, between the ages of 12 and 14. She bore cigarette burns and cuts in concealed areas of her body. Anya expressed that he deemed her less than human due to her illness. There were numerous instances where she was hospitalized due to his actions. Her cousin attempted to speak with her mother regarding the ongoing abuse, but her mother dismissed her concerns, claiming she did not want to confront Anya. She was aware the entire time and had the ability and evidence to take action, yet she refrained due to her profound disdain for Anya. She also refused to involve the police, as Anya had told me that her ex-boyfriend threatened to kill her. This abuse continued for 2 years, leaving Anya severely traumatized. I raised this issue during our conflict. She responded indifferently, saying, "Yeah, she wasn't my problem or my child." I was momentarily speechless, staring at her in disbelief, astonished that I was conversing with another human being. I hadn't thought I could witness such a lack of empathy, but there I was. In a fit of anger, I shared the details of all the years Anya spent sobbing alone in her room, vomiting blood, and nearly dying repeatedly, while her mother remained inactive during it all. Her expression appeared bored. She told me I should leave, and I departed without saying anything further. I felt anger towards her children and husband, as if they too should have defended Anya sooner. Throughout the train ride home, I gazed through a man as if there was a book behind his face. I was jolted back to reality when he muttered something about, "Why are you looking at me like that, man?" To which I merely mumbled an empty apology. I spent hours, days, and nights supporting Anya, and her mother had dismissed her suffering as if it were inconsequential. When I arrived home, I gathered my thoughts and visited again a few days later. This time, I approached the conversation with much calmer intent. I attempted to persuade her to accept Anya, to which she sighed before heading to the kitchen. This was after she had introduced me to her children, the youngest female 9 years old at that time, whom I shall refer to as Amy, the middle child female 15 years old at that time, whom I will call Lexi, and the eldest female 16 years old at that time, whom I will refer to as Lee. I discussed Anya with Lee for about an hour, and this seemed to present new information to her. Anya was nothing like what their mother had described. Lee expressed uncertainty about how to handle the situation, and I pleaded with her to accept Anya once again. She eventually agreed, and I expressed my gratitude to her. We exchanged contact information and departed. That evening she texted me, informing me that she was outside her house because her mother had kicked her out. She was upset with her mother for defending Anya, and they had a conflict. Soon afterward, she was permitted back inside. For the next 2 months, this pattern of conflict persisted. I kept urging her mother to accept Anya, while Lee communicated with her father, trying to convince her mother to embrace Anya. Eventually, Lee grew weary of my persistence, aware that I would not give up. I was puzzled by her willingness to tolerate my pressure given how much criticism I directed at her, but nonetheless, Anya soon moved in with her. She kept me informed about Anya's situation, which was not particularly favorable. Her mother did not speak to her at all, and she was excluded from nearly everything they did. I exerted considerable effort trying to make her mother understand these issues, and sometimes she dismissed them while at other times she appeared to listen, occasionally giving a knowing nod. After roughly 5 months, I learned that her mother had read Anya a lullaby to help her sleep. I was overjoyed and asked her mother if she would ever hug Anya. Suddenly, she became enraged again. I knew I had to tread carefully. I became aware of some issues involving Amy, and I defended her fiercely, treating her as if she were my own younger sister. She adored me like an older brother and even used the term for big brother in their culture to refer to me. For the most part, I was able to shield her from any anger directed at her, though at times my efforts faltered and I could not assist her. I consistently lectured her mother, to which she never responded. After approximately 6 months of this back-and-forth dynamic with Anya, exacerbated by physical health challenges and mental episodes stemming from trauma, and arguments over sending her to a mental hospital, an extremely taxing process that encountered numerous setbacks in mending their relationship, things began to improve. One day I conversed with her mother regarding why she did not express anger directly towards me. She mentioned, and this is slightly paraphrased, I had issues with my family too. My family never taught me how to be a woman, and I was sneaking out, making terrible choices and drinking excessively. It ruined me, and I recognized it. I should never have become a mother. Every real child I had is damaged. I was unable to save my first child. My sons are gone, and look what I did to her. She called my name and continued, God sent you to me for a reason. I never got angry at you because you were what I needed. I was lost, and you weren't afraid to hold me accountable. My daughter is back. She told me that she had not consumed a single drop of alcohol since the day we met, implying that I was something of a sign for her. This made me feel special, and I thought my struggles were finally behind me as I could relax with the family I had helped. Anya's health, however, began to decline and she required surgery. She clung to me, expressing her fears and pleading not to go through with it. Her mother informed me that they would not proceed with the surgery, and I accepted this. I did not visit for a period since her mother repeatedly stated that she and everyone else were too busy, and I accepted this as the situation. Eventually, her mother relented, revealing that they did proceed with the surgery, which angered me. However, she put me in my place, explaining that Anya could die if they did not act. After the surgery and everything was resolved, Anya was finally allowed to see me freely, and she cried for hours while holding on to me. She shared her pain and terrible thoughts, reminding her of her abusive exes. I held her tightly and kissed her on the head. I remained by her side consistently, always wishing to protect her. However, it felt as if everything was worsening. Amy was suffering from physical issues as well. Lexi was rarely seen as she spent most of her time outside the house, and Lee's trauma continued to intensify. She often recalled her mother reading her a lullaby before taking her own life in front of her in the kitchen. Every conceivable misfortune seemed to pile up relentlessly. It is overwhelmingly exhausting. I feel guilt and anguish, believing I could have done better for her. I could have spent more time with her, conversed with her more. Now she is barely conscious, either in that hospital bed or crying in pain when awake, rejecting anyone who tries to approach her. I want the suffering to cease, but I understand this situation is chronic. I desire a sense of normalcy, even if only for once. I tried to limit my discussions about myself in this confession. I have endured horrifying experiences, and at times I long for a mental reprieve and to receive compassion for myself, but I never get that opportunity. I take on the role of caregiver for her and her family without relent and have genuinely attempted to address my own needs, but it seems to exacerbate matters. I simply wish for something to improve. I want everyone to find happiness. Story 2. Am I who I am because of my genes or did life shape me? After years of silence and hurt, I finally realized my calm is my armor, my silence my weapon. Now I'm ready to confront my past. What truths await beneath the surface? Is personality a creation we inherit or a sculpture we endure? Since the dawn of time, humans have sought to understand what shapes them from within that elusive entity called personality. Is it a seed planted in our genes from the very first moment? Or is it the shadow of experience drawn across the walls of our soul over time? At every moment of awareness, invisible forces collide within us, inherited impulses from our ancestors and scars etched by our lived experiences. Between these two, personality is born, neither rigid nor fluid, but flexible to the point of contradiction, strong despite its fragility. This text does not aim to offer final answers, but rather serves as an invitation to those bold enough to truly reflect on themselves. Inheritance, the first imprint. We are born carrying in ourselves a hidden load of traits we did not choose but that chose us. From features to tone of voice, even our instinctive reactions are rooted in genetic codes, ancient instructions whispered through bloodlines. A child may be born calm or temperamental, without explanation other than the silent voice of deoxyribonucleic acid. Evolutionary psychology supports the idea that some aspects of personality such as sociability, sensitivity, and adaptability are innate. But is that all there is? Of course not. Then life happens without mercy. Every moment, every wound, every betrayal becomes a sculptor's tool that completes what nature began. The child whose voice was never heard grows into an adult screaming silently. The one embraced with warmth steps into the world with a confidence they cannot quite explain. Life does not build us from nothing, but it activates what is hidden. It amplifies certain traits, silences others, and here, personality begins to form, not as a solid mass, but as a mosaic of feelings, thoughts, and reactions. The truth is, personality cannot be reduced to one cause. It is like a tree. Genetics are its roots, experience its branches and shade. One cannot exist without the other. You might be born quiet but shaped into a poet by solitude. You might be born hot-tempered but learn compassion when your words wound someone you love. No personality is fixed. It grows, hardens, softens, and is reborn again. That is what makes us human, not repeated copies but ever-evolving stories. Personal reflection in my own voice. I have often wondered, am I who I am because I was born this way, or did life, with all its intricate details, mold me into this person? Was my calmness innate, or did I choose silence because I learned early that noise does not save you and loudness goes unheard? I was a quiet child, not one to cause chaos or demand attention, but I felt deeply. I did not dislike being alone, I simply preferred silence, as if words betrayed me or exposed my fragility. Over time, I did not change completely. I simply became less visible, more silent. My emotions remained but were buried beneath layers of adaptation, awareness, and caution. I learned not to ask, not to explain, not to justify myself. I learned that solitude does not always equal loneliness, and that silence can be the final form of strength. I used to think these changes were just phases. But now I understand, my personality did not arise from nothing, nor was it gifted fully formed by genes. There were moments, traumas, unspoken pain, I had to swallow because no one understood. Sometimes I laughed at things that hurt because that was easier than admitting I was wounded. I started building an inner wall, not to hide behind but to live within. A wall no one can see but one that shields me from collapse. My silence is no longer weakness, it is a weapon. My calm is no longer comfort, it is armor. My personality is not a spontaneous decision or a genetic accident. It is a delicate interaction between what was placed in my blood and what collided with my soul. Maybe I was always sensitive, but experience carved a mind that does not break easily. Maybe I was drawn to peace, but now I guard my silence from the chaos of the world. I am not a victim, nor am I invincible. But today I know who I am. I know why I have become this way. I am not what others expect. I am what I chose to be when survival left me no other choice. Similar personalities, different stories. Personalities may resemble each other, but stories never do. You may meet two people who avoid crowds, speak softly, and prefer solitude. One may have been born this way, while the other was shaped by trauma. One grew in silence, the other fled into it. A cold, unreadable face may seem naturally distant, but might be someone who learned not to cry because no one listened. Life does not always change the core of a person, but it reshapes the edges. It carves, twists, softens, and hardens, just like a stone, same material but molded by different blows. Genes may provide us with a frame, but experience lights the fire. The sensitive child may become a poet or a numb adult, depending on what they endure. The flexible girl may become unbreakable, not by choice but by necessity. A final reflection. There is no final answer. Personality is neither just deoxyribonucleic acid nor merely experience. It is the intimate dance between the two nature and nurture, instinct and environment, what is inside and what is outside. We are born with emotional outlines, yes, but we do not remain the way we were born. We change not because we are weak but because we adapt, we protect what is left of us, we grow what we need to survive. So do not judge someone by what you see on the surface. Sometimes what you witness is not a trait but a defense. Are emotions just feelings or reflections of who we are? We often categorize what we feel: sadness, anger, comfort, fear. But what if our emotions are not fleeting visitors? What if they are voices of our hidden selves? When you are sad, is it just a moment, or a neglected part of you begging to be heard? When you erupt in anger, is it just a reaction, or a buried identity tired of being silenced? Psychological theories suggest we are made of multiple inner selves, not just one. Each carries its own story, emotion, and need. Together, they form the fabric of who we are. Perhaps we do not live inside one personality, but rather a group of versions of ourselves. Each emerges at different times depending on context and memory. The child inside, the strong one who never cries, the tired one who keeps smiling. Every emotion is a window, not just a response but a message. Ask yourself, why do you really feel this way? Have you ever wondered why your anger is so quick to flare? Is it really about what just happened, or is it pain that never healed? Have you convinced yourself you are fine, or have others said it so often that you started to believe it? You know deep down that something is not right. You feel a quiet ache that no one sees. Not everyone in pain needs therapy. Sometimes all we need is to sit with ourselves. To ask, why do I feel like this? To admit, no, I am not okay, but I want to understand. Understanding is sometimes the first step to healing, and peace comes not from ignoring the pain, but from holding it gently. So ask yourself now, what are you hiding beneath your silence? What truth stays unspoken when someone asks, how are you? Are you your emotions, or are you becoming what you needed to survive? Maybe it is time to sit with yourself, not to find one answer, but to understand everything you have buried. Some questions are not answered with words. They are answered when you finally stop, listen, and face who you truly are. That is where the real story begins. Story 3. My ex left me after 3 years saying I never fully trusted her. You took too long to open up. So here I am at 30, grappling with abandonment issues rooted in childhood bullies and toxic friendships. Can I really break this cycle of isolation? I, a 30-year-old male, experienced my first breakup on Friday, and while I am heartbroken, that is a story I will not share here. Officially, she left me because she could no longer endure the physical distance between us. She has health issues and we reside about 90 minutes apart. She stated that it was too much for her. However, she also felt that I would never entirely trust her, as the reality is I am very slow to open up and to trust. Even though I did open up to her considerably towards the end of our relationship, she felt that it came too late, after we had known each other for nearly 3 years. Thus, if I am ever to have any chance of improving in the future, I must learn to be less private, less ashamed, and share this important aspect of my life with others while learning to discuss it. I have a therapy appointment scheduled soon. I am resuming therapy with a previous therapist I had seen for some time, at least to help me cope with the breakup, so that is a step I am taking. Nevertheless, that is personal and I need to learn to be less private. I suspect that I have abandonment issues and a fear of betrayal based on my past experiences. In elementary school, I was bullied by individuals who were once my friends, my close friends at that time. Subsequently, I developed a new friendship that I clung to until one day he stopped speaking to me. When I asked if we were still friends, he said no. To this day, I genuinely do not understand what transpired. Clearly, that was all quite some time ago, but it had a significant impact on me, and I have evidently carried it with me ever since. All this followed the fact that my other closest friends from childhood had moved away, with the exception of one who I still consider a friend today. I was homeschooled for 2 years because of the bullying but returned to public high school where I was quite antisocial, yet managed to do well enough. Naturally, I withdrew online during my homeschooling years and remained in that space. This is where I begin to feel shame because everything I am about to describe feels trivial and inconsequential in hindsight. Nonetheless, it genuinely affected me. It is challenging for me to discuss these matters with people in real life because I perceive them as foolish. In 2009, I joined a group in a massively multiplayer online game, and in early 2011, some of us established a Minecraft server. That server evolved into a narrative server where we crafted stories and drew maps, among other activities. I hosted the server on my personal computer, which led me to take on a leadership role, believing that my opinions were paramount. As we included more individuals, there were more voices contributing to the project with different creative visions. I frequently found myself in conflicts with certain people over creative differences. I was extremely resistant to compromise on certain issues that were ultimately insignificant, and I should not have acted so dictatorially. I would have been in my freshman year of college when everything escalated in 2013 at an age where I should have known better. In 2013, I got into another significant argument, and because I felt possessive of the server and the Skype group we had created, I decided I was done with everyone and expelled them all from the Skype group and banned them from the server. The next day I calmed down and somewhat regained my composure, bringing them all back in. Back then you could force add people to Skype groups, but I sat there and watched each of them express their frustration with me, ultimately choosing to leave. That was the angriest I have ever felt in my life, watching them walk away from me. I deserved it. I was extremely toxic at that time, but that experience deeply hurt me and the memory has lingered with me. I have only recently managed to verbally express to myself that I forgive myself for my actions during that period, and I am still uncertain if I truly believe it. I continued to maintain contact with most of that group through another mutual server, but I was still toxic towards them during that time. Instead, I developed new friendships in a different online group I had joined. I felt quite proud of myself during that period, convinced that I no longer needed to be alone. I had found new, better friends as I thought at the time. However, when one of the individuals in that group began to withdraw slightly, the comfort zone I had grown accustomed to over the last few months shattered and I broke down. I spiraled into a deep depression, and until my recent breakup, it was the last time I cried. The year 2014 was undoubtedly my year of depression. It was during this time that I began to open up to some of my newer friends and also recognized how poorly I had treated my old friends, sincerely trying to make amends. Opening up to my new friends turned out to be a mistake, especially in the case of one specific person. I shared with him things I had not disclosed to anyone else, albeit watered-down versions, as my judgment was not all there. Towards the end of 2014, I began to improve, and I started to see that the new group I was associating with was somewhat toxic themselves. They frequently spent time complaining about certain individuals, both when sober and intoxicated. I gradually grew weary of this and communicated my feelings to them that the group's negativity was bringing me down. Well, the person I had confided in took offense to that, and we ended up arguing in direct messages. Ultimately, I realized the conversation was going nowhere, so I closed my laptop and walked away. I suppose he felt slighted by my absence, for when I returned, I discovered that he had launched an awful tirade against me in our group chat, betraying the trust I had placed in him and repeatedly declaring that he wished I would die simply because I had walked away from the argument. Things calmed down after that. The Minecraft server was reinstated, but we continued to have conflicts. My closest friend within that group and I eventually experienced one last falling out, marking the end of our close friendship. This was partially due to creative differences, but not entirely. The nature of politics became a contentious issue in our group chat. We had diverse opinions among our members, and I wanted to avoid the arguments that I knew were inevitable. However, for her, politics were a matter of life and death for her family. She could not simply set it aside. Our distance grew because I refused to discuss politics, and as we drifted further apart, I became increasingly toxic, unable to manage the growing distance in a healthy manner. This occurred closer to 2018-2019, I believe. We still occasionally converse, but we are a far cry from what we once were, and that has been quite difficult. The server ultimately shut down for good sometime around 2019 or 2020. All of these experiences, among likely more, have contributed to my fear of abandonment and my hesitance to trust. This is difficult for me to discuss because it seems trivial. Focusing on Minecraft drama, it does not seem worthy of such a profound impact on my life, yet here I am. While this is not the sole factor influencing my tendency to be private about my life and history, it is a significant part of it. I am still striving to figure out how to forgive myself and others. I genuinely believe that I am a different person now, a better person. I have apologized to those I hurt the most, and I actively work to avoid putting myself in situations where I might become angry or engage in an argument. As a consequence, I tend to be non-confrontational, avoid all competitive games, and struggle to open up to people I love quickly. Currently, I still communicate with a few individuals from both groups. I have made friends in college with whom I talk weekly, as well as my one childhood friend who never abandoned me. Although I have friends, there exists a considerable gap between my oldest friend and my second oldest friend. I have interpreted this as a continuous narrative of abandonment. Many of the friends I made in the interim left, and due to all the betrayal I suffered from bullies, I could not simply accept that this was a natural drifting apart. I shared a version of this story to the best of my ability with my now ex-girlfriend, and she expressed gratitude for my openness, but she still left me. I'm experiencing that overwhelming sense of abandonment and betrayal of my trust once again. I simply needed to share my story, to vent. I hope that by expressing this and putting it out into the world, it will diminish some of the power it holds over me. I still struggle with how to convey this to anyone in person without feeling like a fool and facing immense judgment. Perhaps I can diminish its hold on me. I do not know what else to do. Writing out my thoughts has been the only remedy that has provided me with any relief. Story 4. My mom's favorite line was, "You're making me feel like a bad mother," every time I showed pain. After 32 years of emotional abuse, I finally broke the cycle, but only after finding love with a woman who sees me for who I truly am. Can I heal the child I once was? Content warning: emotional abuse, narcissistic parenting, gaslighting. Summary. My mother's favorite phrase was, "You are making me feel like a bad mother." I was the golden child until I became ill, at which point I became the problem. My stepfather is a passive-aggressive narcissist, and I have spent my life walking on eggshells around him. Breaking Bad devastates me because Jesse's parents reflect mine obsessed with appearances beneath a facade of love. Watching the show with my girlfriend, who supports me through all my difficult emotions and genuinely wants to understand me, demonstrated how different life can be. I feel empathy for my parents, particularly my mother, because I recognize that narcissism frequently stems from trauma. However, that does not excuse how they continually took without providing anything meaningful in return. I can finally see the pattern and I am determined to break it. I do not need to fix myself, I was never broken. Recently, a single sentence that has echoed in my mind for years finally resonated. "You are making me feel like a bad mother." Not during moments when I lashed out, harmed someone, or failed a moral test. Rather, it was when I said, "Please help me." I was 5 years old, having a tantrum and trying in my own desperate way to communicate something I did not know how to articulate. However, my mother became angry. She claimed that my need for comfort made her feel like a bad mother. Consequently, she yelled at me and withheld all contact until I apologized and ceased crying. If I needed her, I would face punishment. If I displayed pain, I would be the villain. Still, needy little me held onto that abusive biological parent for 32 more years, enduring gaslighting, lies, jealousy, drama, criticism, and the coldness in her eyes that still tightens my gut and makes me hold my breath every time I encounter it. She gave me life but then outsourced the emotional labor of raising me to a confused and frightened child who had no tools and no protection. When I finally expressed that I needed more, she made me feel needy, broken, as if the issue was not the neglect but rather my audacity to ask to be seen. When I communicated that I was in pain, that my myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome was ravaging my body, and that I could not handle shopping, chores, or even standing upright on some days, her response lacked care. Instead, it was guilt, masked as sadness, her way of shifting the focus back onto herself, as she always did. "You are making me feel like a bad mother," as though my suffering existed solely to tarnish her reflection. The irony: I was not always the scapegoat. I was the golden child, her pride and joy, as long as I played my role perfectly. I did not merely join the military, I aimed for the stars. It is astonishing to reflect on how much I destroyed myself in pursuit of the notion that perhaps someday my egotistical parents would genuinely love me. I pushed my limits, contracted the Epstein-Barr virus, and was thrown back into full service without any recovery. My body broke, my mind cracked, and I was drowning. Instead of supporting me, she attempted to keep me in the army because she appreciated how impressive it sounded when she bragged about me, not for my well-being and certainly not because I was okay. She even financed the lightning process, that cult-like scheme that claims if you are still ill, it is your fault for not thinking positively enough. Because if I did not improve, then perhaps she would have to confront the reality that she had failed me, and that was simply unacceptable. Consequently, she framed it as if I was not making enough effort. Then there is my stepfather. I have spent my entire life shielding him from the truth that he is an insecure, passive-aggressive individual who hides behind mean jokes, a facade of calm, and a profound fear of being exposed. I allowed him to overshadow me in every conversation. I permitted him to twist every jab into a "can't you take a joke?" I watched as he gaslighted and retreated the moment matters grew serious. When I was 16, I confronted him, labeling him for what he truly was, an asshole. What was his reaction? He physically obstructed my entry into our home, laid hands on me as if I were a prisoner because I shattered the illusion. That was not discipline, that was an immature man lashing out because I ceased to comply. This is why Breaking Bad devastates me. My girlfriend, the first person who truly sees me for who I am without expecting me to perform, has been watching it with me. While we lie there simply enjoying a show, I keep being struck by scenes that unexpectedly resonate with my life. She loves pausing the episodes with me to discuss, analyze, and reflect. Unlike my family, she does not roll her eyes or become annoyed when I express my thoughts or have questions. Heaven forbid we ever paused a movie growing up or disagreed. That was treated as a personal affront. But now I get to engage in healthy, inquisitive conversations with someone who genuinely wants to understand me. This did not come easily, as she supported me through every moment when my abandonment issues flared up during our disagreements. She encouraged me to stay rather than escape, to voice my feelings instead of shutting down, and to dismantle the misconception that differences are dangerous. So when we reached that scene where Jesse's parents smile while disowning him, it hit me like a freight train. We love you, but we cannot allow you to stay here. That was not love, that was managing an image cloaked in rehearsed concern. Just like when I was caught smoking marijuana. They did not inquire about what was wrong. They sent me to therapy to be fixed, not supported, but corrected, so they could continue pretending they were not part of the issue. And here's the part that still troubles me. I feel sympathy for them. My mother, my stepfather. Deep down, I understand what they are, individuals emotionally frozen in childhood, surviving through defense mechanisms, trapped in silent panic, too frightened to confront their own reflections or be unmasked. They wear masks daily, perform adulthood, and mimic empathy. But beneath it all, they hurl insults like angry 5-year-olds who never learned how to love, feel, or take responsibility, especially for others. In my mother's case, I do not believe she consciously chose to become this way. I think she was shaped by trauma, neglect, or whatever emotional violence influenced her long before I came into existence. I genuinely believe narcissism can develop from unresolved childhood pain. However, that does not absolve her or anyone. We all have a choice, and she opted to protect her narrative rather than her son. This does not grant her, or anyone, the right to take continually while giving only scraps back to their children, partners, coworkers, or the world around them. It does not excuse their way of draining others' vitality, their energy, self-worth, and voice, simply to feed an insatiable ego they are too afraid to confront. Understanding is not synonymous with condoning, and I am finished suffering for people who never had the capacity to love me wholeheartedly. It becomes easier when you forgive yourself after a lifetime of enduring that critical voice you believed would safeguard you in childhood by labeling you as stupid, inadequate, or a burden, even telling you that you are broken. The reality is, I will never be able to fix myself because I was never broken in the first place. I understood that logically long before I could genuinely feel it. However, it started to resonate finally when I felt it reflected back in the love I share with my girlfriend. She is the first person I can recall who allowed me to cry in her arms without pulling away. No discomfort, no retreat, no attempts to fix me, just holding me. The way she gazes at me without flinching. The way she creates space for the most vulnerable parts of me as if they are still deserving of warmth, because we all need to cry sometimes, so why cry alone? The way we pause a show to converse, not because we agree, but out of mutual respect for each other's thoughts. That is when I realized I have been complete all along. I merely needed someone to guide my hand as I embarked upon the most frightening thing of all, becoming the version of myself they conditioned me to fear, the authentic me. Story 5. Caught in a cycle of deceit. After 3 years, I discovered my boyfriend's porn addiction that he swore he'd stopped. "You're enough for me," he promised, right before I found a saved video 2 days old with my name. "Can this relationship be saved?" Very long post, sorry in advance. My boyfriend, 26 years old, and I, 21 years old, have been dating for almost 4 years now. You do the math, I understand how it sounds, so let us move on. This is my first genuine relationship, and I feel I have made a terrible mistake by staying in it for so long. I met him when I relocated halfway across the country during the COVID-19 pandemic at the restaurant where we both worked. The best way to describe our relationship is that it is filled with very high highs and very low lows. A couple of months ago, I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. On my way back to our room, I was overwhelmed by a strong instinct to check my boyfriend's phone. I did so, and while I did not find anything unusual, the feeling did not dissipate. I had a thought to look through his bookmarks on Twitter, and all I found was pornography. I had clearly communicated at the beginning of our relationship that I consider pornography cheating, and that was non-negotiable for me. I understand that it may not be a significant issue for some people, but I have always viewed pornography as mentally damaging, and I believe that men who are addicted to it often end up cheating. Moreover, the thought of my future husband desiring women online is repulsive. He had told me that he watched pornography before we started dating but had no need for it since we got together, claiming that I was more than enough for him. I naively accepted that. I put his phone back and went to wake him up. My heart was racing and I felt nauseous. He woke up and tried to comfort me. I told him I had a bad dream about him cheating on me and that I had caught him with pornography. He assured me that he would never do such a thing to me. His sincere reassurance only made me feel worse. I asked for proof. He hesitated and asked if he could use the bathroom first. I told him the condition was that he leave his phone in the room. He went, returned, crawled back into bed, and held me, placing his phone on the desk by the door. I asked him again for proof. He finally admitted to it. When I asked to see it, he refused. The most troubling part, the most recent video he saved was only 2 days old, and the woman in the video shared my name. How disturbing is that? When he eventually gave me the phone, he had already removed the video from his bookmarks. I then confessed that I had already seen it, and I was glad I did because of how comfortable he was lying to me. He claimed he hadn't even noticed the woman's name. I am sure he had more important things to focus on. Anyway, I was a sobbing wreck. It was close to 5 a.m. and we finally fell back asleep. In the morning, he pleaded with me not to leave him. He went on and on about how he did not know how to stop, praying and trying to find a way to tell me about it. As if he hadn't had the chance to come clean when I first asked to see his phone. Everything about that night has made me question our entire relationship, the way he lied, and how I would have believed him had I not already checked his phone. Every sweet thing he has ever said about me being enough for him. The way he keeps his phone with him almost all the time. Everything. He claimed he stopped watching pornography, saying he just stopped as if it were that simple. If it were that easy, why didn't he stop months ago? Why did he even start watching it in the first place? Every time I bring up this issue or any of our other problems, he tells me precisely what I want to hear, and I stay with him. A few days after I discovered the pornography, I checked his phone again to ensure he deleted what he said he would. I browsed through his pictures, which I had not done previously. In his recently deleted folder were 2 pictures from a girl I did not recognize. Both were screenshots from her Instagram story, one a gym selfie and another a picture of her going out. I confronted him immediately. He said he did not inform me about that because he considered it the same as pornography and was disposing of it as I had requested. Oh, did I mention that this girl is his former coworker? I lost my temper because who in their right mind would equate lusting over strangers online with lusting over someone you used to know? Both are bad, but one is clearly worse than the other. I then went through his TikTok following. Before this incident, he had always been kind and understanding of how he made me feel. However, when I asked to see his phone because he followed 300 inappropriate accounts on TikTok, he snapped. For the first time, he hid his phone from me. He walked away as I tried to approach him. He was doing something on his phone but refused to show me what it was. Naturally, I thought he was deleting evidence. Then he ran into our bathroom and slammed the door on my hand. Yes, he was literally trying to force it shut on my hand so that I would have to pull it away. When he emerged from the restroom, he explained that he had deleted his account and the app. His reasoning, you ask? He did not want me to go through his saved items because it was embarrassing. He did not want me to see that he had saved penis enlargement pills. I do not even know if that is something you can buy on TikTok. But once again, he told me what I wanted to hear, so I remained. Recently, I feel like giving up on him. I know you are probably thinking I am foolish for staying this long, I understand. But as I mentioned, this man was my first everything. Our lives are so intertwined that I cannot imagine not at least trying to make things work. To cope with everything, I downloaded a therapy app on my phone. It genuinely helped me, so I showed it to him and he downloaded it too. He told me it was helping and that he was genuinely excited to use it. Things seemed to be improving. However, we had an argument last night and it felt like all the progress he had made since starting therapy vanished. I realized that progress looks different for everyone and that everyone has their ups and downs, but this situation did not feel right. Last night, after our fight, I woke up in the middle of the night and found it difficult to fall back asleep. I decided to check his phone again. I believe he does not know this, but the therapy app keeps logs of all conversations. The only conversation he had was from the day he downloaded the app, and he did not even complete that conversation, so he lied. Again, curiosity got the better of me, and yes, I know this was wrong, but moving on, I reviewed the very short conversation. The beginning was nice, he seemed to genuinely regret hurting me. However, 2 things stood out to me. First, he expressed that he was scared to hurt my feelings, leading me to think that he is withholding something in an effort not to hurt me, even though he knows I am not the type of person who prefers ignorance. Second, brace yourselves, he compared my sex drive to that of his exes, stating that they engaged in sexual activity frequently and that she had a high sex drive that matched his. He claimed that there was no love in their relationship, so he is happy with me, but he is simply not accustomed to a low sex drive. I have my reasons for having a low sex drive, not that I feel the need to justify myself, but it is essential to the story. He caused my low sex drive. He took my virginity, and without going into too much detail, I was not exactly prepared to lose it. I am the type of person that requires an emotional connection to want or enjoy intimacy. I have communicated to him that his treatment of me diminishes my desire to be intimate with him. I hardly ever initiate intimacy, but I also rarely deny him. He does not take care of me before, during, or after intimacy, and he wonders why I do not have a high sex drive. But he blamed his hidden pornography addiction on wanting too much from me, acknowledging that it was unreasonable to ask for things from me when he was not putting in the effort himself. He admitted that this was no excuse for cheating. But lying to me about using the app and claiming it was helping him, who does that, comparing my sex drive to that of his ex? Am I possibly overthinking this? It is one thing to express dissatisfaction with my low sex drive, but must you truly compare it? I feel like I already know the answer, but is there anything here worth saving? Is it worth the effort and time to stick this out and see if things improve? I do love him, but could it be that I have simply never experienced anything better? What would you have done? Any advice at all would be appreciated.